we're focusing on recoil, and there's some little hidden attachments in there that are significantly better than what most people are using. And that's what we're going to focus on today to make sure you get as low a recoil as possible. And what we can see here is when we have a properly built RPK, we get little to no recoil. I won't control for anything. We'll kind of see what this recoil pattern does. And it mostly just goes vertical, which is the easiest kind of recoil to control. Generally, you kind of just hold your thumb down, and even though there is slight variation in recoil pattern to recoil pattern, in general, it's not that much harder to control. So what we do is here, we just aim kind of in the same spot, we pull down, and we can kind of pretty much shoot in the same spot repeatedly. And this is just like a blank spot on the door. It's not like we have a silhouette of a player. Pretty much you hold down slightly, and as soon as you find that sweet spot, you really don't have to move. Obviously, as characters move, you make adjustments based off that sweet spot, but that's a whole other topic. And if you look at this build, it's a little bit different than what we've talked about in the past, and you'll probably see other people post about, and that is because we've gotten new information from sim.gg. And we've talked about sim.gg in the past. Pretty much they run a bunch of different stats for different various games, and they covered a lot of Warzone at the end of its life cycle. And with the tons of data, they've continued to add stuff with the current weapons that are in Modern Warfare 2 as well as Warzone 2. And the attachments for movement speed, recoil, and sway are now working. The hipfire stats are still missing, so there is a little bit there, but it'll eventually get there. But the main reason I wanted to focus on this is because it allows you to find the optimal attachments for what you're looking for, especially for long-range weapons. And once you've already picked the meta weapons, as we can see here, which are mostly the lower recoil weapons that you can kind of modify and min-max the recoil to better suit your needs. And what I mean by that is that we can go ahead and go over here to any of these attachments. If we go ahead and go through the muzzle, what you're going to see is there's nothing on the right hand side here below my webcam. As I go ahead and put this one here, it's going to show that it worsens your aim down sight time, and when you release the aim down sight, how long it takes to do that. So you're getting 2 penalties there. Your melee damage will increase, and then your melee hits to kill will be reduced. So if we go down here, we can go ahead and look for specific attachments that are related to recoil. We have view kick, which is this first stat we can see right here. If I go ahead and go right here, there's view kick, which I've highlighted there. That one is specifically what the gun does vertically and horizontally in terms of visual. Then we have the gun kick, which is actually what impacts the recoil pattern. So you kind of want to do a combination of both. So we can go down here, we can go ahead and select one. And then now it's going to use that as a point of reference when we compare to another attachment. So if you wanted to remove recoil from horizontal, we would look for greens in the horizontal category. The TZL, not better. We can go down, Cronin, not better. The Husher silencer, not better. Titan, not better. Polar fire. And keeping in mind that we're only looking at recoil. If we want to focus on muzzle velocity, we would look for ones that only have that green in muzzle velocity, which would be Polar Fire, ZLR, Echo line really doesn't do much for this build. And then we got the Zulu, Tempest. This one's helping vertical, as you can see there. And then we go the TY. This is actually helping only horizontal. So if we want to reduce that recoil as much as possible, we could put on the TY LR8. And this is one that I haven't really seen a lot of people recommend. And what you can do is you're going to minimize almost all horizontal recoil, which is kind of what we saw with that RPK. Then we can go down the line and kind of look at what other stats we're trying to solve for. This gun only has a muzzle velocity of 600, which, if you're not really in tune with what that means, let's go ahead and take a reference point of some of the guns that were meta within Warzone 1. Luckily, I already have them here built, so we can go ahead and kind of see how that worked. AMAX was one of the lower bullet velocities that was within the meta. And if we look at this with the meta build, we can see that its muzzle velocity sits around 1200. And that's on the lower end. If we go to the Growl, that sits closer to 1600. AK, most of the colder ones are right at around 1530. XM4 is the same. And then we got the Automaton, which comes in at 1430, which is right in the middle ground there. And then the Cooper Carbine, very slow as well at around 1100, almost 1200. So using that information, if you build a gun that has low recoil, but you're still struggling to hit your shots, or you feel like you have bad hit reg, which a lot of people blame the game has bad hit reg, when they have low bullet velocity weapons, you're going to want to solve for bullet velocity along with recoil so that you can make sure that wherever you're aiming, your shots are also going, because that's a critical important part, because having to lead shots or predict people's movement can get a little tricky, especially when they're about 80 to 100 meters away. So we can go ahead and try and solve for that. The number one way to do that is to use a bullet velocity or high velocity ammunition. And that's what you're going to pretty much use on all your long range options. For that reasons, it'll allow you to have better bullet registration, but that also limits what weapons we can use because we have to sacrifice an attachment that we would other use on recoil. That's why the meta has been very strict on what is available, because of that restriction and lowered bullet velocity makes it a little bit harder to hit targets at range, which is kind of a trade-off because otherwise then it'd be too beamy. I guess people would complain about that too. And we already have a fast TTK as it is, right? Using these weapons. Then we're gonna go ahead and put on a bigger mag. All right, cool, for longer range. So we're gonna use whatever optic we use in that place. So now we've already used 4 attachments. We're kind of like, damn, we gotta figure out what is gonna be the best attachment for recoil. So we can look at all these stocks. We got 2s, 3s. Like I'll go ahead and scroll up. You can see that there's like 2s and 3s. Not really all that good. 3s and 4s. All right, let's check the rear grip. Boom, okay, rear grip it is. We can go ahead and kind of see not much is going on there. Ooh, 5s and 7s. All right, 5s and 7s on this demo. So we need an underbarrel or a barrel that's gonna have 5s and 7s. We go to the barrel, we can go through here. Damn, this IGK30 has 11, an 8, a 10, and an 8. So that's actually pretty powerful. Let's see if the muzzle or the underbarrel can actually solve for that. We go over here, we can look through 2s, 3s, 4s. Like we've already seen the Merc, super powerful. 8s and 9s, very good. Lock with precision, also 8s and 9s without the penalty of the movement speed. So Lockwood could be a good way to go because you might want to factor in the aim down sight speed. So if we look at that again, we can see that here. The aim down sight speed's 40 and 20. So we might be able to go with this. That's not too bad. 40 to extra 8 milliseconds, and we're getting muzzle velocity. So this might be the good way to go to build this out. Then once you start with that, then you go to your tunings because we have 1,000 muzzle velocity, which kind of gets us about as high as it can get without turning into a suppressor. And the real reason we're trying to avoid a suppressor is because although we're going to get like 300 muzzle velocity here, like a huge amount, we're not actually going to solve for much recoil. So this could be a really good build if you're not going to run a suppressor. So it's pretty much that exact build with some tunings for it to have a little bit less recoil. Then we go in here, we're gonna have decent bullet velocity, very little recoil, and it should be relatively easy to hit targets like we just saw right there with little or no adjustments. So we go right here and I do not adjust for this recoil. What we'll do is go ahead and see kind of what the pattern does, and we'll work based off of that. So a little bit, it wasn't a full mag. Let's try that again. So we'll go up here. Mainly just vertical and a slight pattern diagonally to the right. Not too bad. We pulled down slightly into the left, and we'll go ahead and see that this one will also be a very easy recoil pattern to do. We just hold down into the left and pretty much just hold it in there, and boom. There we go. Removed all the recoil. So how the tuning would work on this gun is we would go ahead and use this and we would adjust this. So if I remove these tunings, what we're trying to solve for here is recoil. We would just adjust this until we kind of see that we stop getting benefit right around right here is probably the best we can go without damaging anything else or reducing our recoil effectiveness. And then damage range really isn't that important because the ranges at which this will impact it is very negligible. So we're going to get more out of the aim down sight speed. We can actually go that route. We're probably getting the best there. Boom. That's that for that. This is what it would be for this one. And then we also have the same thing for high velocity. And then we also have the aim up, which you can adjust this closer or further away. And that is 100% based off preference. Why I generally like mine closer is that it gives me that VLK feel that we've had in Warzone 1. People like the visual, not impacting the visual recoil. It's just a matter of how the gun's size on the screen. It's not actually impacting the FOV, which would in fact change how the gun feels. So I would definitely experiment with sim.gg, kind of figure out what attachments you like, and you can min-max them. And maybe you feel like the gun's too slow. Well, maybe you can go ahead and look at the aim down sight speed differences and make judgment calls if you're going to use this for multiplayer or battle royale. And this should get you started regardless of what gun you're going to use. You can minimize almost all the recoil and make it shoot like a laser comparatively from if you're already starting off with the gun that doesn't have an insane amount of recoil to begin with. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.